The boat rocked gently as it approached the island, the sun casting a golden hue over the calm waters of the Bohol Sea. Siquijor appeared almost dreamlike from a distance, its dense forests glowing green under the late afternoon light, its white sand shores quiet and untouched. Liam, a 27-year-old travel vlogger from New Zealand, tightened the strap of his backpack and took a deep breath. He had explored much of Southeast Asia, but something about Siquijor had called to him differently. It wasn't the beaches or the waterfalls. It was the stories. Locals in Dumaguete had warned him. They said Siquijor was more than just an island, it was a realm of whispers, potions, and shadows. A place where witches healed and cursed with the same hand. A place where spirits walked at night, barefoot and invisible. But Liam was drawn to the unknown. His YouTube channel, Beyond Borders, thrived on mystery and myth. And Siquijor? It had both, in abundance. As he stepped off the boat onto the island dock, a gentle wind swept through the palm trees. A group of children played near the shoreline. An old man sat by a cart selling dried herbs and oils. The air smelled of salt, and something older, like burnt leaves and crushed flowers. A woman greeted him with a shy smile and offered a necklace made of coconut beads and small black stones. "For protection," she said softly. "From what?" Liam asked with a grin. She didn't answer. Instead, she turned and walked away, disappearing into a narrow alley between wooden houses. Liam looked down at the necklace in his hand. It felt warm. He had booked a small bamboo hut near the village of San Juan, run by a local woman named Aling Rosa. The ride there was short, through narrow roads lined with acacia trees. People waved politely, but their eyes lingered on him with a quiet curiosity. By the time he arrived, the sky was a deep orange. Aling Rosa stood by the gate of her property, a short woman with silver hair tied in a bun and eyes that held too many years of stories. "You came alone," she said, not as a question but a statement. Liam nodded. "Yes. I heard this place has its own kind of magic." She looked at him for a moment, then smiled. "It does. But not all magic is kind." She handed him a glass of water infused with something herbal and cold. "Drink," she said. "To keep your spirit in your body while you sleep." Liam laughed lightly, thinking it was just part of the island's mystical charm. But deep inside, something in him shifted. As if something ancient had noticed his arrival. That evening, as dusk fell over the island and the jungle sang its chorus of insects and distant howls, Liam sat on the porch of his hut. The air had grown heavy, as though the island exhaled something he couldn't see. Aling Rosa joined him without a sound. In her hands, she held a small pouch made of woven banana leaf. She sat beside him and laid it gently on the table. "This is for you," she said. "You will need it." Liam opened the pouch to find a small, hand-carved amulet tied to a fraying string. The pendant was made of bone, smooth, almost polished, with ancient markings etched into its surface. It pulsed faintly warm against his fingers. "What is it?" he asked, half expecting her to say it was just a souvenir. "It's called a panagang," she said. "A talisman of protection. Very old. Older than this village. Older than you can understand." "Protection from what?" Liam repeated, more curious now. Aling Rosa's expression remained calm, but her voice was softer than before. "There are things here that don't want to be seen. Spirits that remember when this land belonged to no one but them. You are a visitor. Sometimes, visitors bring more than just their curiosity. They bring disruption. That is when the island awakens." Liam turned the amulet over in his hands. "Should I be worried?" he asked. She looked at him, her eyes sharp. "Only if you remove it. Whatever happens, do not break its chain. Even if you don't believe in what you cannot see." He smiled politely and looped the amulet around his neck. "Consider me officially protected," he said with a grin. That night, sleep came slower than usual. The hut creaked with the wind. The ocean, though distant, seemed to grow louder as the hours passed. Liam's camera equipment lay on the table beside his bed, ready for tomorrow's exploration. But his dreams were not his own. He saw a clearing in the jungle, surrounded by dark figures in red and black robes. They stood still, heads bowed, arms raised toward something buried beneath the earth. A deep humming echoed around them. Then, all at once, they looked up. And in their eyes, there was no light. Liam awoke with a start, drenched in sweat. The amulet around his neck burned slightly against his chest, just for a moment, and then faded back to warmth. Outside, the wind had stopped. But the jungle was silent. The morning sun was sharp, almost too bright, as though trying to erase the shadows of the night before. Liam brushed off the unease he'd felt, attributing it to jet lag and island folklore seeping into his imagination. After a light breakfast of grilled fish and rice, he slung his backpack over his shoulder and set off with his camera in hand. His plan was simple: explore one of the nearby forest paths leading to a hidden waterfall he had seen marked on an old map in Aling Rose's kitchen. Take the road by the chapel, she had told him. But only if the path is dry. And return before sundown. Liam nodded but didn't ask why. He figured it was local caution, maybe the trail was known for being slippery or dangerous after rain. As he walked, birds chirped overhead and the air was rich with the scent of earth and damp foliage. The jungle seemed alive, every leaf and branch whispering in a language too old to understand. Half an hour in, he came to a fork in the path. One trail was wide and well-trodden, clearly used by locals or tourists. The other was narrower, slightly overgrown, and marked by a small pile of stones stacked in a triangle. Liam hesitated. Something about the second path intrigued him. It felt less touched, more authentic. More real. He glanced at the sky. Still bright. Plenty of time. He turned onto the narrow path. The air shifted almost instantly. The birds stopped singing. The wind disappeared. Even the crunch of his footsteps seemed to fade into the undergrowth. As he walked deeper, the forest thickened. Vines hung like curtains between trees, and patches of moss blanketed the ground like soft skin. Then he saw something ahead: movement. Figures. Not animals. Not quite human, either. They moved slowly, in single file, draped in red cloths that covered their heads and bodies entirely. No faces. No sound. Liam froze behind a tree, heart thudding against his ribs. He raised his camera, zoomed in. The lens shook slightly, but he managed to capture a few seconds of footage. Then one of them stopped. Turned. And even though its face was covered, Liam felt it see him. His skin prickled. The amulet on his chest vibrated, ever so slightly. Then, as suddenly as they had appeared, the figures turned a corner and vanished into the forest. No footprints. No broken branches. He wanted to follow, but something in his bones, something ancient and instinctive, told him to turn back. So he did. When he returned to the main path, the birds were singing again. The breeze returned. The world had exhaled. But Liam couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed him out. That night, the air was thicker than before, humid and still, as though the island itself were holding its breath. The stars above Siquijor glittered faintly, but the jungle that bordered Liam's hut was darker than usual, as if the moonlight dared not touch it. Liam sat at his small desk, reviewing the footage from earlier that day. The clip was blurry but unmistakable, the procession of red-robed figures, moving silently through the trees. And then the moment when one turned, directly toward the lens. He paused the video. Zoomed in. There was no face. Just darkness beneath the cloth. But somehow, the moment still felt personal. He exhaled slowly and leaned back. The amulet on his chest was warm again. Not burning, not glowing, just present. Like it was watching with him. From outside, something rustled. He stepped onto the porch, scanning the edge of the trees. Nothing. But the jungle didn't sound right. No cicadas. No crickets. Only silence. Then, a whisper. At first, Liam thought it was the wind. but the voice was too deliberate. Words he didn't understand. Chanting. Faint, like a murmur behind a closed door. He turned to head back inside, and froze. On the steps of the porch sat a bowl. It hadn't been there before. Inside was a mixture of ash, flower petals, and what looked like small black seeds. Pinned to the rim of the bowl was a dried leaf. Scrawled across it in a language he couldn't read were looping, careful letters. But even without translation, the meaning was clear. A warning. Or a message. He called for Rosa, but there was no answer. Her light was off. Her door shut. It was as if the whole village had gone to sleep early, or chosen to stay quiet. Liam picked up the bowl and carried it inside. The moment he crossed the doorway, the whispering stopped. Just like that. That night, he didn't sleep. He lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling, the amulet pressed tight to his chest. Outside, shadows moved beneath the trees, slow, purposeful. Shapes too tall to be animals. Too silent to be human. At one point, a soft knock came at his door. Not loud. Just 3 faint taps. He didn't answer. Didn't move. And after a while, the knocking stopped. But in the morning, when he opened the door, another bowl was waiting. By morning, the second bowl was gone. Liam blinked in disbelief as he stepped onto the porch. The soft early light illuminated the dewy grass, the treetops, and the now empty step where the strange offering, or threat, had been just hours before. No bowl. No ash. No sign it had ever been there. He turned toward Rosa's house. The door was open. She stood in the doorway, already dressed, as if she had been waiting. You saw them, she said flatly. Not a question. Liam nodded. The red robes. The bowls. The voices at night. Rosa's face changed. Not fear, but a kind of solemn resignation. They've noticed you, she said. That's not good. You weren't supposed to see the path. You weren't supposed to hear their names. What are they? He asked, voice low. She looked out over the jungle, her eyes scanning the treetops like they might be listening. This island is protected, she said slowly. And cursed. At the same time. Long ago, when the first settlers came to Siquijor, they disturbed a place they shouldn't have. Deep in the forest, there is an opening. A pit that leads nowhere. But something came from it. Or maybe it was already here, waiting. Liam felt his skin go cold. To keep the balance, she continued, a pact was made. A group was chosen to watch. Not to fight. Not to stop. Only to watch, and to remember. They are called the Tagapagbinte, the Silent Guardians. The ones in the robes, Liam whispered. She nodded. Yes. They perform the rituals. Not to summon, but to contain. But there is a rule, always. No outsider may walk their path. If one sees them, the pact is shaken. That's why they left the bowls. You've become part of their vision. So what happens now? He asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to hear the answer. They will return tonight, Rosa said. Not to harm you, yet. They will offer you a choice. This place doesn't let go easily. And it doesn't forget. You stepped onto sacred ground. Now the island wants to know, will you carry the memory, or become one of them? Liam stared at her, unsure if she was serious. You're saying I'm being recruited? By jungle spirits? Rosa stepped closer. Her voice was soft, but unshakable. I'm saying this island chooses. And it has chosen to see you. That is not a blessing. And it is not a curse. It is a calling. Liam looked down at the amulet. The bone surface, once pale and smooth, now shimmered faintly in the light, like something ancient was waking inside it. He swallowed hard. For the first time since arriving on the island, he felt truly seen. Not just by people, but by something else. The night came fast. Too fast. It was as if the sun had slipped behind the sea in a hurry, eager to leave Liam alone in the dark. Even the colors around the village seemed to fade, less vibrant, more subdued. Liam sat in his hut, camera off, backpack packed, passport zipped away in a side pocket. Aling Rosa had told him the last boat to Dumagit would leave at sunrise. If he wanted to leave, he had to make it there before then. But his feet wouldn't move. The amulet around his neck pulsed, not hot, not cold, just steady, like a heartbeat that wasn't his. Then, just before midnight, the whispering began again. But this time, it was closer. Not in the distance. Not behind trees. It was just outside. Liam stepped to the window and saw them, 12 figures, robed in red and black, circling his hut in complete silence. No footsteps. No breath. Just motion. At their center, a larger figure stood. It wore no robe. Only a cloak of woven vines and bones. Its face was hidden beneath a mask carved from a single piece of dark wood. The door creaked open on its own. Liam stood, heart pounding, and stepped outside. The figure in the center raised one hand and pointed toward the jungle. No words. No gesture of threat. Just invitation. Aling Rosa's voice echoed faintly in his mind. They will offer you a choice. Will you carry the memory, or become one of them? He followed. The figures led him through a trail he didn't recognize, even though he had explored the area all week. The jungle opened around them like it knew the way. And then, they stopped. In the center of a clearing stood a tree, impossibly wide, its roots stretching like arms across the ground. Beneath it, a pit, just as Rosa had described. It wasn't deep. But it was dark. So dark it seemed to swallow the moonlight. One of the robed figures stepped forward and held out a bowl, similar to the ones left at his door. Liam took it. Inside were petals, ash, and a shard of bone, carved with the same markings as his amulet. The masked figure stepped forward and removed its mask. It was him. Or, a version of him. Paler. Eyes darker. But unmistakable. Liam dropped the bowl. It shattered silently. The forest didn't react. The figures didn't move. But the amulet burned suddenly, scorching hot. He tore it off his neck and dropped it. The silence shattered. Wind roared through the trees. The pit began to pulse like a beating heart. Shadows raced along the forest floor. And then, everything stopped. Liam opened his eyes to sunlight pouring through the trees. He was lying at the edge of the village, near the docks. His backpack beside him. His camera intact. But the amulet was gone. Aling Rosa stood nearby, watching. You made your choice, she said quietly. Liam nodded. I chose to leave. She smiled faintly. No one ever leaves. 2 weeks later, Liam uploaded his final video. He called it The Island That Watches. It went viral. But viewers noticed something strange. In the final frame, just before the footage ends, a man appears in the background, standing among the trees. Dressed in red. Face hidden. Watching.